What I was saying earlier is that we now know that the DRMA has dropped, so it's no longer in effect. Persons, I would say, have been affected by lockdown, by the pandemic, their mental health. So I want to know now, being our country is open and we're returning to some normalcy, do you think that this will actually benefit persons' mental health?
Well, we can look at it from two sides, but let's start from the positive side. The factor that people most benefit in life is this thing called freedom. You remember that song some years ago by Brian and Tony Gold, talking about South Africa? Can we swim in any breach we want to? It was a big hit because it talked about the restrictions in South Africa. And many of us actually felt that way in Jamaica over the last couple of months. You can't go beach. You can't go river. You can't go bar. You can't go, So the whole notion that one does not have to ask permission or one doesn't have to fear doing something you just feel like doing. You can't leave your house. So to me, that's the first factor, the feeling of freedom. People who are in jail have no freedom. Many places they want to go, but they can't go. Now, so that's factor one. Factor two, then, psychological. We are social beings. Human beings are social beings. We interact with other people. Psychologically, we need each other. There are persons that make us feel good. Now, many people were stuck at home with people who did not make them feel good, stuck in places where they did not want to be. And the main definition of stress is being one place but want to be another place. So that's one of the reasons why we had increased domestic violence. Just think of all the places that many people who you're not getting along very well at home, so you stop somewhere before you reach home. And you have a juice and you talk to your brethren and so on, and you make sure you go home late, just in time to go sleep, to avoid the argument. So we had more arguments. So now the fact that individuals will be able now to go where they want to go, spend time with who they want to spend time with, then the social component is also critical now. Many of us literally enjoy, and even more than enjoy, need the company of other people. Even that's one of the sort of quasi-illegal things that popped up during the lockdown. Many bars kind of extended their services because bars were open, but bars also serve food and people also go there. So when music started to play, people start to dance, so that many bars would now have these kind of informal gatherings. Even in communities, the things that we have on a weekend, we have round robins. Every community, so that the psychological and the social component will now come back alive. That now leads to the next component now, economic. Once people are moving around, once people are interacting, dollars are spent, food are made. And there are a lot of Jamaicans who depend on hustling. Just go a road, day after day after day, and they make a little money. They can put on a pot. Even just to go buy some kind of lotto ticket and come back and check your number and so on, see if you win, right? So those are the overall positives that people will immediately feel. Just overall the sense of freedom and the economic benefits. But it would be irresponsible if we didn't give the other side of this. The reason why we had lockdowns was that people could not be trusted to contain and control themselves. And whether we like to believe it or not, COVID still a keep. COVID has not gone away. It means that the present variation that we have is much milder. There are many people who probably have been infected and don't know because the symptoms were so simple. But there are some will not be unlucky. And the question is, do you want to be that guy? COVID is still alive. So therefore, it means that now people must know with freedom comes a thing called responsibility. So what's the responsibility? You are now responsible for your masking because that's how we keep the virus away. You are now responsible for sanitization. You are now responsible for social distance. You are now responsible for the fact that you did or did not take the vaccine. One issue that we have not discussed is that the countries who have over 75% vaccination, they opened first. Because most of the people are protected. Even if their people become infected, the chances of having a negative or a dramatic or a fatal situation is much less. We are 22, 23%. We're not in the same league. We are not in the same league. So again, with freedom comes responsibility. So we really need to keep the campaign going, reminding people, even just this tagline, with freedom comes responsibility. You're free to swim on any beach you want to, free to go anywhere you want to go, but the consequences will still have to be dealt with. So that's my only concern. Yes, the freedom is needed and people will feel so much better and the positive elements and people will really bubble as a result of this. But the question is, will our people be responsible? We didn't show responsibility with the low level of vaccination. So question, will they be responsible to continue to mask and sanitize and social distance? Time will tell.
That is it. Well said. Well said. And also, you said something about people being responsible. Have you seen the amount of road fatalities ever since the DRMA was lifted? I think that persons are so excited that the country is now open. They're irresponsible.
Absolutely. I would not disagree with the hypothesis that there's a connection. I live on a road in St. Andrew, which is a very steep decline and a sharp corner just in front of my gate. And almost every holiday, a person crashed into my fence because they're going country. They're going on trip and they don't really know the road, but they're trying to get there fast and they can't take the corner. So then that's the other side that comes with the freedom and the responsibility. More trips, more going out, and more consumption of substances that may impair your judgment. So that, the way life comes, if you don't have internal controls, life gives external controls. Huh? Children need external parental control, teacher control. Adults who don't control their behavior, police control their behavior. So again, this is the test. So media will have a big role to play in how this pans out, to keep the campaign going, keep the awareness going, so persons understand, enjoy your freedom, but that tagline, do so responsibly. The responsibility to stay safe and healthy is now yours. It's not on the state in terms of having the restrictions and when you can and cannot go and what time you have to go home and so on. But that's where we are now.
I very much agree with you with that also. So the media definitely has to portray that this pandemic isn't over yet. The DRMA has lifted, but COVID is still here. Also, in terms of mental health, I know that we have been in the DRMA. The COVID has been here with us for 2 years. Do you think that the people have built some type of resilience for their mental health? Their mental health built some resilience. They have to become stronger. How do you think they will return to normalcy now? Do you think that people
mental health has been impacted because of all the things that we mentioned? Exactly. Without freedom, people feel restricted. People feel confined. People feel depressed. You can't do what you want to do. So that's why we talk about the psychological effect, much more positive, the social impact, so that we will now see an easing of the kind of mental impairment and the behavioral components of them, as we saw in the domestic violence, as we saw with the conflicts, the least little thing people blaze off. So that we expect those kind of behaviors to have not as dramatic a presence as we used to see over the last year to 2 years. So that people, once people feel good, you know that there's a wonderful understanding, we have that emotions are more contagious than any virus. So when people feel good, they spread good vibes around them, and they infect other people with that good feeling. When people feel depressed and upset, the same thing happens. They infect other people around them with being upset and depressed. So just that transformation will start to give us a different vibe in the society.
All right. So that definitely means that because of this opening now, we should see more ease, as you said. Persons should be more comfortable. Everything should be smooth.
Well, just to reiterate that the single most important factor is the feeling of freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility. So we really have to remind people. They are adults, but many lack the self-control. Because if we had self-control, we would have contained the virus to a large extent. Many people would not wear masks or sanitize or social distance if somebody did not force them to do so. The majority of Jamaicans have decided not to take the vaccine, which is a very, very bad decision. We have been taking vaccines in Jamaica for over 100 years.
Sorry, why do you think that so many Jamaicans are so reluctant?
Cognitive biases and basic just ignorance. For the first time, we had an international campaign against science. And this whole thing we call conspiracy theories. And we never had those things and social media when we introduced vaccines against polio and smallpox and mumps and rubella and whooping cough and all of these things. But we have all of these things now. So a lot of people, their minds have been quote unquote poisoned against the scientific paradigm. And mentally, we are not very good at understanding scientific fact. So your mind take a little shortcut. And if somebody give you a little gimmick that sounds good and entertaining, you run with it. And if you saw the recent data put out by Capri, there's a significant relationship between vaccination and education. The more educated people became vaccinated, and the converse, the lower educated. Remember that the majority of Jamaicans don't finish high school, The majority of Jamaicans get their information from YouTube. So that kind of basis feeds into the cognitive bias. And for them, they don't understand the principles. But look again, back to the point we're making about freedom and responsibility. Those same individuals who set the fight against vaccine, in order to get their US visa, you must take vaccines. And even with the present pandemic, for you as an artist to do a show in the United States, you must be vaccinated. Look how many of them have quietly got their vaccines and don't say nothing at all to nobody. If you're going to tour Africa, you need about 10 vaccines to get into Africa. Many of our artists have been quietly doing these things over the years. But the ignorance surrounded by the conspiracy theory and the cognitive biases, and persons literally don't understand, and they're taking information from people who have less sense than them. So that's where we are. So that's where I see the biggest problem coming in now. We have 23% vaccinated Other countries have over 80% vaccinated, they're opened up. So that the consequences, if your rate of reopening is greater than and faster than your rate of vaccination, you stand the chance of running into problems. So that, again, time will tell.
Yeah.
Will they listen this time? But you know the Jamaican saying, who can hear? We feel.
Yes.
Stand by.
Look at this now, before we even conclude, being that the country is now open enough, do you think that a lot of persons who are not vaccinated would even bother to consider become vaccinated?
Excellent observation, because what has happened is the pressures and the constant, even the reminders for vaccination have been dropped. You see a couple of things on Twitter and so on where the vaccination centers are and so on. They're still open, but they now need to shift the vaccination protocols. Let me tell you one of the biggest hindrances to vaccination. A lot of Jamaican men are afraid of injections. And you go into a public open space to take a vaccination in front of everybody else to see a ball out and a cry like baby. We need to decentralize it and get it as much as possible. The same way you get other things, your private doctor. Standard places. Most of the vaccines that we take to go abroad now, when I had to get my yellow fever vaccine to go to Trinidad, you go to the comprehensive clinic at Sly Pen Road. And you go, there's one room you go to, you just go in and the nurse gives you the vaccination, done. When I was doing some work for a major company and we were going places that required vaccine, because of their status, the public health people came there. You know, and all the managers and everybody who was traveling, we got our vaccine right there. So I think one of the big shift has to be the decentralization of the vaccination process so that persons can just, in the United States, though, all vaccination has been done in pharmacies. Just go to the pharmacy. Some pharmacies, you make an appointment, others you just walk in and get your vaccination. So that's where we need to get to. The mass campaigns did not work and will not work. Not in Jamaica. We have to decentralize it, get it where people will naturally go and to people who they trust. You trust your doctor. That's why you go to your doctor anyway. So we have work to do.
How about the men who doesn't even have a private doctor? You know, we have a lot of men who doesn't even visit the doctor.
Jamaican men have a very low health-seeking behavior, except when it comes to crisis. So the same way, when they had to get visas to go overseas, yeah, they got vaccinations for that. When you get to the point, and that's the dilemma that we have. Breast cancer is more treated because breast cancer is detected early because women have a high health-seeking behavior. Prostate cancer, oftentimes when it's diagnosed, is stage 4. Because lots of men will not get the regular checkup to make sure if there's any problem, it's detected early. So again, public education has to continue. Public education, especially helping men to understand health-seeking behavior.